All right, get ready. We're diving deep into the world of surety bonds today.
Ooh, surety bonds.
Yeah, we're cracking open MISC Surety Booklet 2.pdf. It's this guide for insurance agents.
Okay.
But we figured it'd be interesting for everyone to get a peek into this financial tool that honestly most people don't even know about.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that flies under the radar.
For sure. So you might be thinking surety bonds. That sounds like paperwork in a snooze fest.
Right. But
Not exactly the most thrilling topic on the surface.
no, but trust me,
That's the catch.
it's way more than just forms and signatures. We're talking about trust and guarantees and actually making sure things get done, whether it's a big construction project or even just like replacing a lost stock certificate.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a pretty wide range of stuff.
So how do they actually work? Like, what is a surety bond in the simplest terms?
Okay, so our source kind of starts by comparing surety bonds to banking and insurance.
Mm.
And
I can see how there might be some overlaps there. Yeah, and it's not quite what you'd expect.
okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, the booklet actually says bonding lends a name, banking lends money.
Bonding lends a name.
Right.
Okay.
So that's like the core difference, right? With a bank loan, you're getting that cash in hand.
Right, straight up.
Exactly. But a surety bond, it's about leveraging your reputation, your financial backing. It's like a vote of confidence.
It's like someone's vouching for you, saying they're good for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like the surety company is basically saying, we trust this person to fulfill their obligations, and we're putting our name on the line.
Okay, that makes sense. But how is that different from insurance then? Because they both seem to offer some kind of protection, right?
Yeah, so think of insurance as more of a safety net, like for when things go wrong.
Okay, so like a car accident or a house fire or something like that.
Yeah, you pay your premium,
Mm-hmm.
and if something bad happens, the insurance company covers those costs.
Right.
But a surety bond, that focuses on preventing things from going wrong in the first place. It's a guarantee that the principal, so the person or company who's obligated to do something, will actually do it.
Okay, so it's more proactive, it's ensuring performance.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it's not just about covering losses. It's about saying, this will get done.
I see. So it's like a performance guarantee rather than a risk mitigation tool.
Yeah, and the booklet actually points out that bond premiums are more like service charges
Oh, interesting.
for vetting that risk,
Okay,
not for covering expected losses like insurance.
makes sense.
And another key difference, if there's any principal, the principal is actually responsible for repaying it, not the surety company.
Oh, wow. So the onus is really on the principal to uphold their end of the bargain.
Exactly.
That's a big difference. So it really emphasizes trust and accountability.
Big time.
Yeah.
And, that's what the surety company does. They carefully evaluate the principal's ability to actually fulfill their obligations before they issue that bond.
They do their homework.
Yeah, they're basically vouching for the principal's reliability.
Okay, I'm starting to get the picture. So it's like, we vetted this person, we believe they're good for it.
That's it.
But what about when things do go wrong?
Yeah.
Because we all know that happens sometimes.
Well, the booklet mentions indemnity. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, indemnity rings a bell. It's like a legal safety net or something, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so how does it fit in here?
It's basically an agreement that protects the surety company if the principal doesn't hold up their end of the deal.
Ah, so if they default on their obligations.
Yeah. The principal agrees to reimburse the surety for any losses.
So it's a way of saying, we trust you, but we also need to cover our bases.
Exactly. You said it perfectly.
Interesting. So there's a strong psychological element to this whole thing, right? It's not just numbers and contracts. It's about trust and reputation.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what makes surety bonds so unique. It's a very relationship-driven business.
I could see that.
Now, the booklet mentions surety bonds just in general,
Mm-hmm.
and then it specifically talks about fidelity bonds.
Okay, is there a difference?
I'm guessing there is, because why else would they mention both?
Right, right.
So are you ready to untangle that?
Let's do it. Let's get into the different types of bonds,
Okay, so surety bonds, that's like the big umbrella term, right?
like the overarching category.
Yeah. And those guarantee all sorts of obligations, from completing a construction project on time
Okay, I've heard of those.
to showing up in court when you're supposed to.
Right.
But then fidelity bonds,
Uh-huh.
those are a specific type of surety bond,
Gotcha.
and those protect against employee dishonesty.
Oh, so if you're a business owner and you're worried about like employee theft or fraud,
Bingo. That's
Mm.
where a fidelity bond comes in.
it's like a specialized insurance policy just for that kind of situation.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you've got your broad surety bonds covering all sorts of obligations, and then you've got your fidelity bonds that zero in on employee wrongdoing. This is all starting to click now. So before we go any further, let's take a step back and introduce the main players involved. The cast of characters in the surety bond world.
Yeah. Okay, so we have the principal, and they're the one who is obligated to perform.
Right. They're the ones who have to do the thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then there's the obligee, who benefits from the bond.
So they're the ones who are protected by the bond.
Yeah.
Okay, and then
And then the third party is the surety, and they're the guarantor.
the ones backing it all up.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So to use a construction example, which our guide does,
Okay.
if you're hiring a contractor to remodel your kitchen,
Okay.
you would be the obligee, the contractor would be the principal.
And the surety bond would make sure the contractor actually finishes the kitchen.
Yeah.
Smart. I mean, that's a really practical example of how surety bonds can protect people.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about peace of mind.
Right. It's about knowing that things are going to get done the way they're supposed to.
And knowing that even if something goes wrong, there's a system in place to make things right.
I like that. It's all about trust and accountability, like we said earlier.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting how the booklet really stresses that insurance agents need to understand all of this.
Yeah.
It even says that having product knowledge of bonds is key for keeping customers happy and keeping their business.
They're not wrong. I mean, knowledge is power.
For sure. But I think it goes beyond just insurance agents.
Oh, totally agree.
I think everyone can benefit from understanding how surety bonds work.
It's good to know even if you're not selling insurance, right?
Right. Like knowing when a bond might be necessary, how it works, how it can protect you.
Yeah.
That's valuable in so many situations. Personal, professional, you name it.
Absolutely. And speaking of protection, let's talk about that underwriting process.
Okay, yeah. The nitty-gritty of how these bonds actually get approved. It's kind of like a financial background check, you know?
Oh, okay.
But a little more intense. The surety underwriter isn't just looking at like the numbers and stuff.
Right.
They're trying to get a feel for the principal, like what kind of character they have,
Makes sense.
what's their experience, even their reputation in the industry. You know, they want to see how likely they are to actually deliver.
Oh, interesting.
It's all about assessing the likelihood of success.
So it's not a guarantee?
No, not at all. It's more like, are they a good bet?
Yeah.
And the booklet actually mentions that surety bonding doesn't rely on like fixed standards or
Yeah.
statistics like you see in insurance,
Uh-huh.
which makes this whole thing sound a little more like art than science, you know?
It's like an art form.
Yeah, there's definitely that element to it.
Okay.
It's not just about plugging numbers into a formula.
Right.
It's about using judgment
Okay.
and experience to look at the bigger picture.
So the underwriter, they're like a detective.
Exactly. Piecing together clues, looking for anything that might suggest a higher risk of default.
Got it. Like red flag.
Red flags,
Yeah.
exactly.
And speaking of red flags, the booklet gives some really helpful advice for anyone who's thinking about applying for a surety bond.
Okay, yeah, what's that?
They say you got to be ready to answer some key questions.
Okay.
Starting with this. Who is the principal?
The big one.
Yeah, like that's the starting point.
Right?
The surety company needs to know who is ultimately responsible for fulfilling the obligation.
Are they an individual? Are they a corporation, a partnership?
Right. And that helps them figure out how closely to look at their finances
Right.
and what kind of indemnity agreement might be needed.
Makes sense. So what's the next question?
Okay, so next they want to know who is the obligee and why do they need this bond?
Okay, so that's about understanding the context.
Yeah, the context and the potential consequences.
Right, because a government agency needing a license bond, that's different from a project owner wanting a performance bond,
It's
right?
very different.
Yeah.
Different priorities.
Yeah, so the surety needs to understand what's at stake.
Exactly. What are they trying to protect? And then the final question, this is a good one, they ask. Did the principal receive any paperwork from the obligee that might have bond information?
Oh, okay.
Or even like a pre-printed bond form?
That's smart.
Right.
Because a lot of times the obligee has very specific requirements,
Yeah.
right?
And if you use their form, it's like you're already halfway there.
Right. Saves everyone a lot of headache.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Streamlines the whole process. And this is actually something the booklet stresses a lot,
Okay.
building a good relationship with your underwriter.
Yeah, communication is key, right?
They even end with this funny little bumper sticker slogan.
Okay, I love these.
They say, have you hugged your underwriter today?
Oh, that's good. That's cute.
Right.
It's a nice reminder that even with all the paperwork and the numbers and all that,
Uh-huh.
there are real people involved in this process.
It's not just robots.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
So open communication is essential.
absolutely.
The more information you can give your underwriter,
Mm-hmm.
the better they can understand your needs.
Right, an advocate for you.
Yes. They can be your advocate within the surety company.
Okay, so they're like a partner in this whole thing.
Yeah, they're not just someone who's like checking boxes.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so now let's break down the bond form itself.
Okay.
The booklet says most of these are written in like 3 simple paragraphs.
Okay, so it's not as intimidating as it sounds.
No, not at all.
Okay, so what's in those paragraphs?
The first paragraph is kind of like the insuring clause you see in an insurance policy.
Oh, okay.
It basically outlines the agreement between the surety, the principal, and the oblige.
Okay, so it sets the stage.
Yeah, like here's the deal.
Got it.
And then the second paragraph, that's where it gets specific.
Okay.
They spell out exactly what obligation the bond is guaranteeing.
So like this contractor will finish building this kitchen.
Yeah, or This person will show up for their court date.
Okay, very specific.
Yeah, very specific. And in the third paragraph, that's where they talk about what happens if the principal doesn't do what they're supposed to do.
The consequences.
Yeah, and usually the surety will either step in and fulfill the obligation themselves.
Okay, so they'll find someone else to finish the kitchen.
Yeah, or they'll compensate the obligee for any losses.
So either way, the obliges is protected.
Exactly.
Smart.
And sometimes there's a fourth paragraph
Okay.
that covers things like reporting a claim
Uh,
or cancellation terms or any special conditions.
okay, so like the fine print.
Yeah, basically.
Gotcha.
So we talked about the different types of bonds like surety bonds and fidelity bonds.
Right.
But the booklet also talks about different bond terms
Mm-hmm.
like annual,
Okay.
continuous,
Mm-hmm.
term, and single obligation. Have you heard of these?
I have heard those terms before, yeah. But to be honest, they all kind of blur together a little bit.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, I mean, what are the key differences?
Okay, so think of these terms as like the lifespan of a bond.
Okay, that's a good way to think about it.
An annual bond is pretty self-explanatory. It's renewed every year, just like a subscription.
Right, like a magazine?
Exactly. A continuous bond, that stays active indefinitely.
Okay, so it's ongoing.
Yeah, unless it gets canceled.
Gotcha.
And then a term bond covers a specific period, like maybe for the length of a construction project.
Okay, so it has a defined end date.
Uh-huh. And then a single obligation bond, that's for one specific thing,
Okay,
like guaranteeing the replacement of a lost stock certificate.
right. So once that one thing is done, the bond is fulfilled.
Exactly. It's one and done.
Makes sense.
Okay, so cancellation, another important thing to understand.
Yeah, because things change, right?
Things change all the time.
Right, so how does that work with surety bonds?
So are all bonds equal when it comes to ending coverage?
That's a good question. I mean, can you just cancel a bond whenever you want?
Well, it depends.
Okay.
Some bonds, like license and permit bonds,
Mm-hmm.
those often have cancellation clauses built right in, so the surety can issue a notice of cancellation
Okay.
according to the terms of the bond or any state regulations.
Makes sense.
But then you have other types of bonds, like contract bonds,
Okay.
probate bonds, or court bonds.
Mhm.
And those can't be canceled without the obliging agreeing to it.
Ah, so it's more complicated.
Yeah, there are more hoops to jump through.
So it's really important for both the principal and the obliging to understand how cancellation works.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
got to know the terms of the agreement and what happens if those terms need to change.
Okay, so now let's talk about the big one, power of attorney.
Ooh, power of attorney. That sounds serious.
Yeah, the booklet makes it sound very powerful.
So what is it exactly in the context of surety bonds?
So power of attorney basically means giving someone else the legal authority to act on your behalf.
Right, like a designated decision maker.
Exactly. And in surety bonds, the surety company will give power of attorney to certain individuals,
Okay.
often agents,
Mm-hmm.
allowing them to execute bonds on the company's behalf.
So they can sign on the dotted line?
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility.
That sounds like it. It's a big deal.
Right. And the booklet emphasizes that even though these agents have this power of attorney,
Hmm.
responsible underwriting is still absolutely essential.
So they can't just go around handing out bonds willy-nilly.
No, they still have to carefully evaluate every situation
Okay.
and make sure the principal can actually fulfill their obligations.
Right. It's a powerful tool that needs to be used responsibly.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We talked about how surety bonds are different from insurance.
Uh-huh.
We met the main players, the principal, the obligee, the surety.
Right.
We learned about indemnity.
Uh-huh.
We explored the different types and terms of bond.
From annual to single obligation.
Yeah, we even talked about cancellation and power of
But
attorney.
girl, it's a lot to take in.
But I think we're starting to get a pretty good handle on this whole surety bond world.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling more confident about it.
It's clear that these bonds play a vital role in all sorts of things, even if we don't always see them.
Right. They're kind of like the silent guardians of agreements and obligations.
Exactly. It's all about trust, accountability, making sure things get done right.
And protecting everyone involved.
Absolutely. But what does all this mean for our listeners?
Right. How does this apply to their lives?
Let's connect the dots and bring it all home. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, but how does this all apply to, like, our listeners?
Right. It's not just about understanding like the theory of surety bonds. It's about seeing their value in everyday life, right?
Totally.
Oh,
So let's
yeah.
say you're a business owner. What are some situations where a surety bond could actually come in handy?
Well, if you're worried about employee theft or fraud, like we talked about earlier, a fidelity bond can be really valuable.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Or if you're bidding on a big construction project, a surety bond can show your commitment to finishing the job. It can give you a leg up on the competition.
Well, that's interesting. It's like a signal to the client that you're serious.
Yeah, exactly. It says we're reliable, we'll get it done.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about individuals, though? Are there situations where, like, regular people might need a surety bond?
Definitely. If you need to replace a lost stock certificate, for example, or guarantee the payment of state taxes, a surety bond can make that whole process a lot smoother.
Okay, so it's like a safety net for those kinds of situations.
Exactly. Or if you're required to appear in court, a surety bond can guarantee that you'll actually show up.
Oh, wow. I never thought about that. So it's like these bonds are more common than we realize.
They really are. They're working behind the scenes in a lot of different areas, just providing that extra layer of trust and security.
Okay, so if one of our listeners finds themselves in a situation where they might need a surety bond, what should they do? Where do they even start?
Well, first things first, do your research. There are so many different types of surety bonds out there. You want to make sure you're getting the right one for your situation.
Right. It's not one size fits all.
Nope, not at all. You can find tons of information online,
Yeah.
and your insurance agent can also be a great resource.
Oh, yeah. Good point. They can walk you through the whole process.
Exactly.
All right. As we wrap up this deep dive, any final thoughts for our listeners?
Just remember, surety bonds, they're all about trust, accountability, making sure things get done the right way. Whether you're a business owner or just someone who wants to understand the financial world a little better, knowing about surety bonds can give you that extra peace of mind.
It's like having an extra layer of security in all sorts of situations.
Yeah, exactly. It's about knowing your options and feeling confident in your decisions.
That's a great takeaway. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of surety bonds.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We hope you learned something new and maybe even feel a little more empowered to navigate this sometimes confusing financial landscape.
Hopefully it's not so confusing anymore.
All right, that's the goal. All right, that's it for today. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive into something interesting and hopefully not too complicated.
Looking forward to it.
All right, see you later.